family and tries, and because he knows that one of Jesse's sons is going to be the king, and he doesn't know which one. So he calls all of them, and they all come into the house, but only a portion of the sons of Jesse were in the house. And he was like, "Is this all of your sons?" And Jesse said, "Well, no. We have one more, David. He's out tending to the sheep." And he said he brought him in, and so then he was the one who was anointed, and that's what all those verses are about. And then Samuel, in verse 13, it says, "So then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel rose up and went to Ramah." So now kind of Samuel's out of the picture. In the last chapter, it said that Samuel didn't actually visit Saul again after that. So that the prophet is kind of not really out of the picture, but he's not really a part of it right now. And in this next verse, "But the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him." So this right there, that verse, really, like, I was really thinking about that, and really, it says an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him. When I think about, like, evil spirits, or when I think about spirits that get upon people, I don't really think about them coming from the Lord, but the Lord has to allow them to come, because it was, if you don't have the Spirit of the Lord upon you, then the spirit of the world is upon you. So the spirit, this evil spirit, it was something that the Lord allowed to come on. He allowed it to come upon Saul, so that everything in the next couple chapters could come to pass. So basically now Saul the Lord isn't with him, and he feels that, and he almost is scared now because of it. And not scared, but he loses, you lose a sense of confidence. Like when you're not in the presence of the Lord anymore, like you lose that connection. And when you lose that connection, you know something is wrong. And Saul knew something was wrong. And let's see, verse 14. "But the Spirit of the Lord departed from Saul, and an evil spirit from the Lord troubled him. And Saul's servant said unto him, Behold now, an evil spirit from God troubleth thee. Let our Lord now command thy servants, which are before thee, to seek out a man who is a cunning player on the harp. And it shall come to pass, when the evil spirit from God is upon thee, that he shall play with his hand, and thou shalt be well. And Saul said unto his servants, Provide me a man that can now play well, and bring him to me." So Saul, now that the evil spirit is upon him, he needs something to feel comforted. And this is why the Lord allowed this spirit to come upon him, so that this turn of events could bring David in his life, and so that because God has a plan for everything, and this was his plan for that particular instance. "Then answered me one of the servants and said, Behold, I have seen a son of Jesse the Bethlehemite, that is cunning in playing, and a mighty valiant man, and a man of war, and prudent in matters, and a comely person, and the Lord is with him. Wherefore Saul sent messengers unto Jesse, and said, Send me David thy son, which is with the sheep. And Jesus took an ass laden with bread, and a bottle of wine, and a kid, and sent them by David his son unto Saul. And David came to Saul, and stood before him, and he loved him greatly, and became his armor-bearer. And Saul sent to Jesse, saying, Let David, I pray thee, stand before me, for he hath found favor in my sight. And it came to pass, when the evil spirit from God was upon Saul, that David took a harp, and played with his hand. So Saul was refreshed, and was well, and the evil spirit departed from him." So when David is in his presence and he's playing the harp, the evil spirit leaves Saul, and he almost feels like that presence again. So he starts to put his trust and confidence into David, so that and that's when the relationship starts to build. And in this next chapter 17, is about, in verses like 1 through 14, is about the defiance of Israel by this Goliath, which is this huge guy who is defying Israel, saying, "Bring your best men forward." You guys are really familiar with the story, I'm sure. But bring your best men forward, and everybody was so scared, because he was a mighty man of war. He was trained in war, and he was trained as an expert, and he was huge. He was just very intimidating in all of his fields. So they were all afraid, and they didn't want to do anything about it. And in verse 13 of chapter 17, "And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to battle. And the names of these 3 sons that went to battle were Eliab the firstborn, sent unto Abinadab, and the third Shammah. And David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul. And David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep at Bethlehem. And the Philistines drew morning and evening, and presented himself 40 days. And Jesse said unto David his son, Take now for thy brethren an ephah of this parched corn, and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to thy brethren. So basically, they're in the camp of war, his brothers are, and Jesse, which is their dad, sends David as almost a messenger to just make sure that they're okay and to give them food, not having any kind of anything in mind that, that David's going to be the one to slay Goliath. And then, let's see, in verse 28, it says, And Eliab his eldest brother heard when he spake unto the men, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David, and he said, Why comest down hither, with whom thou hast left few sheep in the wilderness? I know thy pride and the haughtiness of thy heart, and thou art come down that thou mightest see the battle. So David's brother was mad at him because he knew that he wanted just to come see the battle. And David said, What have I done now? Is there not a cause? And he turned from him toward another, and spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again after the former manner. And when the words which were heard David spake, they rehearsed before Paul, and they sent for him. And David said to Paul, Let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine.